At 3:42 a.m., the night over central Ukraine shredded into light. Radar screens in 3 command posts lit up at once. First a whisper of blips, then a chorus. Sirens began like an animal waking. A voice through the intercom. Multiple launches detected. 101 inbound. Massed missiles. Mixed trajectories. 101 missiles. Not a raid. A calculated deluge. North Korean systems, routed and stockpiled, released in waves across the sky. What happens when a modern air defense is forced to choose which missile to stop and which to let through? This is that night. For months, intelligence had whispered of foreign supplies, hardened crates, sea containers, a shadow pipeline of missiles and parts. Analysts argued about origin, plausible routes, plausible intentions. Few expected the scale. At 3:30, satellites noted movement. By 3:40, early warning networks, space, NATO feeds, and Ukrainian long-range radars, Saab 340 AE, W, and C, stitched the picture together. Dozens of lofted trajectories, some high, some low, different speeds, different signatures. The pattern screamed an attempt to overwhelm. This was not just about destruction, it was about arithmetic. Can defenders spend enough expensive interceptors fast enough to blunt a flood of cheap threats? And what exactly were those incoming missiles? And why did their specific mix matter so much? Launch azimuth 090, multiple boost phases. The shift leader spoke with measured urgency. The first contacts were high and bright, long arc tracks that would come down hard if not stopped. Ground crews at Patriot batteries rotated launch canisters, the hydraulic seals hissing as missile cells prepared. NASAMS crews readied mid-altitude interceptors. Mobile short-range systems crawled into new hide positions. Civilians below were already on push notifications, crawl texts blaring across phones. Command had roughly minutes, sometimes less, to allocate interceptors, to prioritize population centers, power nodes, transport hubs. Every choice would be a bet against an uncertain enemy. How does one prioritize when every dot on the radar looks like one that might kill hundreds? The volley that followed was layered and deliberate. High-altitude trajectories matched what analysts labeled Hwasong 10-style MRBMs, fat arcs and heavy re-entry profiles. Lower, faster shots bore the behavior of KN-23 systems, maneuverable, short-range ballistic missiles that dance on radar. Interspersed were smaller, solid-fuel KN-24 missiles, designed for accuracy and hard to predict. Russian cruise missiles and a carpet of low-signature decoys were threaded among them to confuse defenses. It was deception followed by saturation, followed by precision. A 3-act script meant to bleed the defenders' stockpiles and attention. The question left unanswered was, how did Ukraine's defenses actually respond when all 3 acts played out at once? Ukrainian NASAMS sites engaged the low to mid-altitude threats, launching paired interceptors that streaked like white comets. Near Kiev, Patriot PAC-3 batteries engaged the highest and most dangerous arcs, their missiles climbing and carving luminous trails. Each interceptor is an expensive, finite answer to a finite problem, a multi-million-dollar bullet for a cheap, varied incoming. Explosions dotted the sky, bright blooms and pulverized metal. Some warheads broke apart seconds before ground impact. A handful of intercepts were textbook: radar lock, track, launch, kill. But the volley kept coming. The defenders moved launchers, swapped radar sectors, retasked shooters. Every reallocation was a bet that the next incoming wouldn't exploit the tiny blind spot you left. Not every flare in the night was real. Cheap decoys, radar reflectors or small cruise frames, ate interceptors. That forced operators into kill or be wrong decisions. Meanwhile, Western-supplied jammers and Ukrainian electronic countermeasure teams worked to corrupt GPS guidance and terminal seekers. Several KH-101-style cruise missiles trended off course, guided into empty fields by spoofed navigation or active deception. High above, MQ-9 Reaper-class drones and Allied space IR sensors kept a running ledger of trajectories, giving a crucial extra second or two to gunners below. That latency, tiny but precious, allowed some interceptors to be vectored onto real warheads rather than decoys. Intelligence fusion saved lives in those seconds. Yet despite every success, some missiles inevitably broke through, and what they hit was really puzzlingly strategic. By first light, the tally was rough but telling. Of the 101 missiles launched, roughly 70 plus were stopped in flight by a mix of Patriot, NASAMS, and point defenses. Another cohort, a dozen or so, drifted away or were neutralized by jamming and decoys. But the math is never neat. Approximately 15 warheads reached targets. Damage was uneven but brutal. A regional power substation outside Kharkiv shattered. Transformers turned to molten skeletons. Logistics warehouses burned where ammunition or stored material wailed in secondary explosions. In Dnipro, a residential block buckled. Rescue teams pulled survivors from the wreckage as dust filled morning air. Hospitals reported surge triage patterns. Firefighters worked through pockets of secondary blast fires. The economic and human cost would be measured for months. But behind those statistics, what did the ground actually feel like that night? Numbers are cold until a name appears. A volunteer firefighter described the noise as a falling sky. A hospital nurse with soot on her sleeve described triage bays filled with the wail of people who'd been sleeping minutes before. A grain elevator, the small town's economic backbone, smoldered after a precision strike, its harvest at risk. An older couple whose apartment survived only because a nearby building absorbed the blast told reporters they had seconds to shelter under a table. Those human fragments are the real ledger of the attack. The nights of schooling missed, the businesses damaged, the neighborhoods rebuilt with money that could have gone to hospitals or salaries. War's arithmetic always lands first on people, yet beyond the human toll, surely certain cold economics would present themselves in a new light for Ukraine and its allies. Now the cold calculus. For every cheap decoy or $10,000 rocket launched, the defenders often spent an $11 million Patriot interceptor. That asymmetry can be fatal over time. If an attacker can tie up a defender's interceptors repeatedly, the next barrage, or a cleverly timed penetration, will find fewer counters. Mass, even of low quality, imposes economic costs. But missiles are not only about money, they're a political lever, an existential threat to cities, infrastructure, and morale. They force decisions. Keep shipping interceptors to the front or prioritize protection for critical civilian assets. Power, water, hospitals. Every choice is visible to an enemy watching for patterns. So what blunts this threat? Not one miracle system. It's layered integration, space and airborne early warning, mobile interceptors, cheap local point defenses, resilient and hardened critical infrastructure, expendable decoys, and a doctrine of dispersal. Electronic warfare and cyber measures that blind sensors or corrupt guidance are a multiplier. Automated queuing from ISR to shooters reduces human latency. And perhaps most importantly, political will to subsidize the economics of defense. Tanks and fighters still matter, but in the missile age, survivability depends on networks, sensors that share, shooters that talk, and a midfield of cheap countermeasures that make mass attack economically unattractive. Which raises the biggest question of all. If North Korea's missiles can already reach this far, what and who will be targeted next? One night of fire and noise leaves questions more than answers. North Korea's missiles found a way into a theater far from Pyongyang. Their flight paths carved a new chapter in modern conflict arithmetic. Defenders bought time, but at a price. The future will be decided in budgets, doctrine meetings, and in the silicon of jammers and networked sensors. If you think layered defenses like Patriot plus NASAMS can hold the line, type 1 in the comments. If you believe massed missile salvos will eventually overwhelm defenses, type 2. Want a deep dive on the tech that makes jamming so effective? Hit subscribe. Next week we break down the MQ-9, satellite early warning, and the cheapest decoys changing the math of war. Before you go, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll get early access to more technical military breakdowns. And if you thought this video was intense, you'll definitely want to check out the next one. Just click on the end screen up next. You won't want to miss it. Stay safe. Thanks for watching.